We are heading to the Jack Benny Center for the Arts and joined by Ty Rower, the manager of Cultural Arts. We're looking forward to meeting with him. He's on his way to join us momentarily, and in the meantime, we're talking with you, Pop, looking at some Jack Benny clips in history.
Yeah, and we should let the folks know that we're changing our format a little bit, that we're really focusing now on the virtual road trips.
That's true. And I realized as I went through the our intro out of habit, each and every week is no longer our modus operandi. We're looking at approximately once a month we want to have a virtual road trip to some of these esteemed museums around the world.
And we do have another one coming up with we've already visited with them, which we're looking at the
Oh,
Titanic exhibit.
absolutely. That's right, with the Volo Museum, and that is extraordinary what they've created. Yeah, so we've been with them before to see their automotive and transportation exhibits. This is their Titanic exhibit, which they're very well known for. So we're looking
Yeah,
forward
and
to
they're
that
very
one.
proud of it, as a matter of fact.
That's right. And Cynthia is writing in to the chat saying she was giggling when she noticed that the first email said that we were joining at 1 a.m. for our program today. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
That was an error in Zoom. We're not meeting at 1. We always meet 10 a.m.
Yeah, and yeah, so we have a lot of new things coming up, and we'll be surprising you as the time goes on, and we'll be revealing some of these surprises.
That's right. Although we're no longer meeting every single Monday, Dad and I and Cassandra, we have been dedicating this time to some additional pursuits that I know you're all going to enjoy when we're able to disclose those to the public. So,
And talking about Jack, and Ty will give us more information when he arrives, but when you think about all the negative attributes that Jack Benny had, and he was still one of the most beloved performers of all time. Do you want to try and name some of the bad attributes?
oh, well, stingy, of
Cheap,
course.
yeah, very cheap,
Yep, narcissistic.
very vain,
Yep.
short-tempered. There are just so many, and there's only one other person I can think of
Ooh,
that
ooh,
has. You have him?
ooh.
Who?
Rickles.
No,
Rickles.
no. Brickles is not. He doesn't have bad attributes. I'm talking about somebody that made his career out of having lousy attributes, and that's Larry David.
Um,
Larry David is almost as he. The thing about Larry, he's not as lovable as Jack is. Jack just people loved him. There's no doubt about it.
yeah, well, I think Jack, so this is the correlation I see with Jack and Rickles. You both know that even if they're saying inappropriate things, it comes from a place of love and that this is for the joke, for the laugh. I don't get that with Larry David. He's a comedian that you just can't help believe him that he can be this insensitive. Maybe not to the extent of as displayed on his television show, but certainly that is his sense of humor. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Um, there was a great story about Jack where he was working in Las Vegas and he was standing in the wings with a friend of his by the name of Steve Allen. And Steve Allen says to him, he says, Jack, you know, you could do more with a gesture than other performers can do in an entire monologue. He said, did you ever try to find out how long you can go without saying a word and still getting the audience to laugh? And Jack said, that's very interesting. I'll try it now. And they introduce him and he walks out on stage and naturally the audience stands up and starts applauding. And he does one of his gestures like that and they start laughing. And then he makes another gesture. And the next thing you know, he's from what they wrote, he did 7 minutes of not saying a word, and the audience was hysterical, not saying a word. And then he brought the house down with one word. He just looked at everybody and went, well. And that was it. And why was that? Because he had conditioned us as an audience to respond to certain gestures, certain behaviors that he had created over the years that we knew he was going to do something like that.
If I could tell you a short story, Pop, you've told me that story, of course, years ago we've discussed it and what, how Jack was able to accomplish that. It's a great accomplishment, especially in the world of comedy. But for anybody who thinks that Dad and Cassandra and I, we just talk about comedians and this history, no, we live it. So years ago, I was doing a play, The Complete Works of William Shakespeare Abridged. It's a comedy down in the village of Manhattan. And I remembered that story that you said, Pop, of Jack Benny going out and not saying anything. And there was one scene that I opened from a blackout, and it was just hobbling on stage as a character, a little old man with a walker, with a double-handed walker. And I set foot out and I kind of just like took one step. And once the walker came out and you heard it on a silent stage, that click clack, it got a laugh. And what came to mind was your story of Jack Benny. And I
Mm.
realized, how long can I take to walk to the front of the stage with this little walker and get and maintain that laugh? And of course, I can't take 7 minutes as Jack did, but I did recognize the theory behind it in that moment and remembered you telling that story.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're learning from the master.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, you're learning from Jack Benny.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
These lessons hold true. We have a note here from Cynthia as well, talking about negative attribute of Jack. He's always 39, of course, a very good age. But she says, Jack Benny is my favorite comedian. I feel lucky I was able to buy a cigarette box from his estate that had been gifted to him by Frank Sinatra and Mia Farrow.
wow.
Right?
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So
I
we're
want,
looking at this clip. Pop, can we take a look?
yeah, I really want to show this, and the reason for it, it's Bob Hope and Jack Benny, and when you think about it, they knew each other for decades. They worked together, but their styles were diametrically opposed to one another. Jack was slow and deliberate, and Bob was like a machine gun on legs. There were rat-a-tat-tat jokes. Also in the scene is a very young Rosemary Clooney. She just has one or two lines, but she cannot get them in because these two guys are ad-libbing so much. Watch.
Well, let's go to work. Yep. I ain't got no spot here for you. Didn't you hear what I told you? Didn't you latch onto what I told you? We don't use fiddles. Now cut out. You're bringing me down.
Listen, don't get biggity about fiddles. You know, you'd make a better violin player than I am anyway.
How do you figure?
Well, I had to buy my bows. You were born with one.
Don't steam me, boy, unless you're tired of having your nose in the same old place.
You don't scare me, Buster. He cut me.
All the excitement. How about this kid here? This kid wants to play fiddle in here. This pumpkin roller.
Pumpkin roller? So's your old man. That's the line they gave me. So... I've been rehearsing it all day. Couldn't wait till I got here. So's your old man.
He thought it fit you so well.
Say, Fingers, why don't you listen to him? Maybe he's got something.
You think so? You think you're the kind of a cat that could play this kind of music?
Yeah, why don't you give this cat a chance?
Yeah, the least you can do is give this cat a chance. We're all taking the same lines.
Okay, cat. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll try you out, but only on her say-so. Hey, boy.
Okay.
Come in here.
Right.
I want you to meet Jelly Roll Benny. Just got off the bus right here.
He plays fiddle.
Yeah. Tears a cat
There
to
we go.
pieces.
Right
There you
now,
are.
boys.
Hey, wait a minute. Did this tin cup fall out of your case?
That's where I keep my rosin. Get your dime off me, your foot off.
We've been rehearsing that all day. Okay, now.
Okay. I just love that they were so spontaneous that they could ad lib with each other and make it. And poor Rosemary, you see her trying to get that line out?
Yep. Yeah. But we see this type of thing as well. It's of the era. You would have Abbott and Costello. They'd be doing the same thing, cracking each other up, ad-libbing. Jerry Lewis as well.
Yeah.
Dean, the two of them, they knew it was more important to be funny than to be accurate.
Okay, one more clip with Bob Hope.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. It's been a wonderful season. 37. I know you're 37 because you're younger than I am.
Where did you get this idea?
I didn't
You
mean
did?
to drop it. I didn't mean to drop it.
Well, I was just...
Listen,
They wanted...
are we Martin and Lewis?
We're going to hear from Abbott and Costello, I guarantee you.
Wow, happy birthday.
Thank you, Dennis.
And with that, we're pleased to welcome Ty. Good morning. How are you?
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Ty. We were just enjoying some clips of Jack.
Yeah, every time it's funny, isn't it?
Never, it doesn't age, just like Jack.
It doesn't.
Okay, tell us about where you are right now, Ty.
Well, I am in the Waukegan History Museum at the Carnegie. So this is originally a Carnegie Library that opened in 1903. And this building actually was shut down in 1965 as the folks of Waukegan outgrew this building and then moved into a new library space. But for the last 6-7 years, the Waukegan Park District, the Waukegan Historical Society have taken on the monumental task of bringing this building back to life. So very soon it will be opening to the public as the Waukegan History Museum for the Carnegie. And we have a lot of fun things that are happening in here. One of them is telling the story of our very favorite Benjamin Kubelski, born right here in Waukegan, a young boy that nobody thought would grow up and be anything, but today we know him as the great Jack Benny.
Now, he started playing the violin at a very early age. Was he like 6 years old?
Yeah, 6 or 7. Yeah, his parents really had aspirations for him to become a great violin virtuoso. So he was given a half-size violin to start at, and the family really realized he had musical talent. He could play melodies on the family piano just from ear. So he started taking lessons here in Waukegan and had talent. His parents really grew very frustrated with him, though, because he would spend a lot of time when he was supposed to be practicing, just dazing, looking out the family's window, enjoying beautiful Lake Michigan. But he still stuck with it. He eventually does get to play like in the high school orchestra, and he's playing as a freshman, where a lot of times the underclassmen weren't in that orchestra yet, but he was talented enough. And then he goes on to get a job playing in the pit orchestra at the Barrison Theater here in Waukegan, which was actually connected to this Carnegie Library at that time.
Is that when he met the Marx Brothers?
It is, yeah. He meets the Marx Brothers for the first time during that time in the pit orchestra. Minnie Palmer, the mother of the Marx Brothers, that she really liked Jack's playing, and she offered him a job to go on the road with the Marx Brothers to play with them. It probably would have been a great opportunity, but Jack's parents said, "No way. If you go on the road with a comedy act, you will never become the great violinist that we want you to be."
Were they all about the same age at that point? I'm talking about the Marx
Um,
Brothers and because Jack was about 18, I guess, somewhere in there.
yeah, he was younger than 18 at that point. He was 15, 16, I believe, around then.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. I mean, I
Mhm.
know he wasn't 39 yet. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. So what do you have at the center? What is it all about?
Well, regarding Benny or just
Jack Benny, yes.
Jack Benny, yeah. So we have two very unique artifacts related to Jack Benny's life. Now we have a lot of photographs, signed things in the collection, things like that too. But two very special artifacts that we have on display. The first is his vaudeville trunk that he and Cora Salisbury used during their 1 year together when they're out on vaudeville. So after he turns 18, Jack is able to convince his parents that he's ready to go out on his own, make a name for himself. And he teams up with Cora Salisbury, and Cora had been the director for it at the Pit Orchestra in the Barrison. And they go out and they are doing a piano violin duo, playing classical pieces. It's during this time when Jack encounters some other vaudeville violinists that have similar names, so he has to start changing his name. But we have that closed trunk that the two of them used in that 1 year.
And what year are
Cora,
we talking about? Do you know the date?
that
Roughly?
is
It's
well,
okay. I was just curious ballpark what we were looking at here.
yeah, middle 1910s.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. And the second item you had mentioned?
The second item is the door to his radio studio. So after our project here with the Carnegie Library started to kind of go national, I received a call from a gentleman out in Los Angeles. He said he had a unique artifact for us, and I mean, we get related to Jack Benny. We get quite a few of those calls. It's usually just a newspaper clipping or something like that. But he said he had the door to Jack's old CBS radio studio. And so he worked for CBS, and he was in charge of transitioning the radio studio over to television. And he said he was a big Jack Benny fan. He asked CBS if he could take the door home, and they said sure. But he said he neglected to ask his wife if that was okay. So the door went home and stayed in his garage until he called us and said that he would love to send it to us, and we were happy to acquire it and add it to the collection and have it on permanent display. So we have really important touchstone artifacts from the radio days, the vaudeville days. We have some family things as well. So we just need something from television, and I'm sure his Stradivarius violin will come our way one of these days, right? I'm waiting for that phone call.
Ty, what was your relationship to Jack before getting involved with the museum?
I was aware of Benny. My family has enjoyed, I guess what I would say, classic comedy, at least for my generation. So it was definitely was familiar with some of what Jack had done, at least with television, and his relationship with Bob Hope and things like that. My family, they're big into that era of Hollywood, the Bing Crosbys and those types of things. And musical family too. So I mean, we were just, I was aware from a kid, and then coming here to Waukegan to work with the museum, with the Historical Society and Park District on behalf of the city's history. That's when I really got to learn a whole lot more about Jack Benny. And beyond just the comedy aspect, which is timeless, it's just really wonderful to see and hear about all the great things that he did for the Waukegan community. He never forgot his hometown. I mean, we know he mentions Waukegan all the time in radio, even in the television show, and even in some of the movies. But he really did support a lot of different things financially. He did it quietly because people liked that persona of him not wanting to spend a dime. But he found ways to make a difference.
I remember reading an article about him, and when he went out for dinner with Mary Livingston, she would get angry at him because he would leave an excessive tip, and he always felt that he didn't want that image to come into his personal life. He wanted people to know that he was very generous. But I always thought, had he left a quarter, that waitress would have said, "This quarter was from Jack Benny," you know. But yeah, but he was always overly generous when he was tipping.
Yes, he was. Yeah, and some waiters and waitresses historically did sometimes get upset when he left them quite a bit more than they really thought he should. So.
Do you have any information about Mary Livingston, about their relationship? Wasn't she a relative of the Marx Brothers?
Yeah, she was. She was a cousin. They had met each other previously, but eventually later on, after they meet, he really becomes smitten by her. And Mary, Sadie Marks at the time, she was going to marry somebody else. Jack called her up, said that he would come into Chicago, meet with her and her family. They should talk it over. And he said she was too young to get married. And they all meet in Chicago, and he proposes to her. And she tells Jack, "Well, you said I was too young to get married." And he says, "Well, to him maybe, but not to me." And they get married here in Waukegan at the Clayton Hotel. Unfortunately, that building doesn't stand anymore, but it was a traditional Jewish ceremony where in Julius Sinekin's apartment, a good friend of his, lifelong friend, and it's a neat legacy to have that Hollywood power couple get married here in his hometown.
And she really had no theatrical experience, unlike George Burns or Gracie Allen. She was not prone to be a performer.
Right. So he's in his vaudeville days when they get married, and the story goes that he hires an actress to play the part of a girlfriend in his now comedy act. At that point, he transitions away from the classical music and things like that, and there's a good local story about that too. But he eventually brings Sadie in to fill in for the girlfriend, and the vaudeville audiences really do like her. And then eventually, once the radio show is up and running, she starts making some guest appearances, and the radio audiences love her too. And then at that point, Sadie Marks becomes Mary Livingston, and she's known that way the rest of her life.
Yeah, she never transitioned into television because of her stage fright.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was all.
And it's said she had that even back in the vaudeville days, but yeah.
Ty, obviously Jack is, being honored at this museum and sharing his story, but is he represented anywhere else in Waukegan and within the community?
Yeah, he is. Another Park District facility is the Jack Benny Center for the Arts. So within that facility, you get to do theater, music, all these different things that were part of Jack's life plus more. So we are always hoping to be grooming the next Jack Benny, whether it be young or young at heart, getting experiences within the arts. He is remembered at the Jack Benny or at the Waukegan Walk of Stars. So it's a little kind of section with different important Waukeganites. He's featured there. There is a statue of Jack that is right next to what is the Genesee Theater and what was the theater district back in his day. So right across the street from where Jack Benny did his world premiere of his movie Man About Town in 1939. Wonderful sculpture of Jack holding a violin with his classic pose that we see on the screen here. And but then if you look at the base, you can see a few things that the sculptor put in there. The number 39, the crocodile that's protecting his safe, different things like that. And then of course there is the Jack Benny Middle School. And the breaking ground of that happened in 1959 during the city's centennial. Jack came back for that celebration, and that was part of it. Then 2 years later, it opens up and honors Jack, and their motto is "Home of the 39ers." And the kids there get to see Jack as they walk in and out of their building, and he considered that one of the greatest honors of his life to have the school named after him, especially since he did not really do very well in formal education, but he really loved to come back, meet with the kids, surprise them sometimes coming back to hand out diplomas. So it's a great honor to have that school named after him.
Ty, if we have a lot of followers, and if they were to come down to your facility there, how much time would they spend to go through the Jack Benny exhibit?
Well, the Jack Benny exhibit is just a small part of the overall Waukegan story.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't open to the public yet, so we haven't really had any true test subjects in to see how long it takes to get through our museum.
Well, that's true. You and I have been in contact with each other for over a year, trying to set this up, and it took you. You're still not open yet?
We're still not open yet. No.
Wow.
Looking out my office window, we still have construction crews in here. Yeah, construction projects are just. I was 39 when this project started, and just not anymore at this point.
You also had another famous individual from that same area, the author Ray Bradbury.
Yes. Yeah, and this library was his childhood library. Now it was for Jack too, but Ray used this library, I think, a lot more than Jack did. Ray, as a young kid, this is where he would come in, and this is where he said he fell in love with reading, which in turn leads him down that path to the prolific author that he was. So we are honored with continuing that storytelling, that connection, telling his Waukegan story for visitors. And we are honored today to have Bradbury's personal library. So the books that he collected or started to gather as a kid all the way up until his death. Those are now on display in the children's reading room here in his old childhood library. So his personal library in his favorite space in his childhood library. So we're so happy to be able to show that off to the public too.
Wow. The idea about Jack's evolution into becoming Jack Benny. There was a very early talkie he did called Broadway Romeo, I believe it's called,
Okay.
and there is no sign of the Jack Benny that we grew to know. He was more of a city slicker type of con artist. Did you ever see that film?
I have not seen that one. No.
Yeah. Yeah. But there is no evidence of him. But when he got into radio, he was one of the first to start hiring writers because he knew he wanted to develop he couldn't come up with enough material week after week on radio. And do you know the name Harry Cohn?
Yes.
Okay. Would you share that story with everyone?
Oh, oh, I know the name.
Oh, okay. He was a writer on the staff.
Yeah.
And from what I gathered, it was he who came up with the idea of Cheap. It was the idea, he came up with the idea of making him cheap and 39, but the other writers also carried it along. But eventually he felt possessive of all the material that he was giving Jack Benny, and he felt that he was more responsible for Jack's success than Jack was.
Hmm.
And it caused a rift between the two of them. Eventually, he ended up being dismissed from the Jack Benny writing staff, and Jack found out that he was unemployed. He wasn't able to get any work, and he would. This is what the story about Jack with Harry. He sent him a letter saying that he needed material, and he would pay him X amount of dollars every week. All he had to do was mail the jokes in. He paid him every week for the jokes, but he never used one of the jokes. He just was helping him get on his feet again. That was Jack's way of helping him out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting story.
It is. It is.
Thinking about it, Pop, though, the evolution of of becoming Jack Benny. Ty, earlier you mentioned about grooming the next Jack Benny, at your art center.
Yeah.
And I wonder, either Dad or Ty, if there was one element of Jack's success that you would want to see imparted to the younger generation, what would that be? What would the next Jack Benny look like?
Wow.
Well, he's got to be self-deprecating. That would be, I think, one of the first things. I can't think of anybody today that falls into that category. Gaffigan, what do you?
Yeah.
Jim Gaffigan?
I mean,
Yeah.
there are quite a few comedians now that follow that model, where
Yeah.
he really was kind of a trailblazer for that.
In a way, Ray Romano has a lot of that
Right.
in his act, putting himself down.
I just really love the way that he could just milk a moment.
Yeah.
And yet I don't know if we quite always get that opportunity anymore in the way that we consume a lot of our comedians and things like that. That he had that way of just bringing the audience to laughter and tears by just stopping, doing nothing.
Yeah. I want to see
Patience.
Yeah.
Darren, can I show one more clip?
Please.
All the time, you see. And this show tonight, of course, is a special. That is, they call it a special. It's not a special at all. It's an hour show. They always make a big thing. It's all it is 2.5 hours put together. It's not a special. To me, a special is when coffee goes from 85 cents to 74.
But we've been groomed. We're groomed to understand how cheap he is, and that's why it's funny.
It is, but even in this example, you can see his pacing isn't like anyone else. If you looked at the waveform, he has dead air between his sentences.
Yeah.
He's actually waiting for silence
Yeah.
before he begins again. And that's not something we see anywhere. Ooh, Ty, what are we looking at?
All right, so I came down into the lower level of the Waukegan Chronicles.
Wow.
So here you're seeing,
And your Wi-Fi is holding up.
yeah, it is. Yeah,
Good.
old building with a lot of Wi-Fi in it, which is great. So here you're seeing
The
the
trunk.
vaulted trunk,
Wow.
and at the top you can see Salisbury and Benny. I hope you're seeing that okay. And then the door there to his radio studio. And then kind of on top of it, just overlaid with wonderful pictures in our collection. One of my favorite ones here at the top with Jack signing some autographs to kids at the school named in his honor. I love how he just gets on the floor, gets down at their level to really connect and interact with them.
Ty, when you received that door, what was it like opening up the box? Did you have any idea what it looked like? Did you have any idea what it was going to be?
We did, yeah. The gentleman had sent us a photograph, and then we went through lots and lots of Jack Benny photographs to try to find a picture of it to confirm, to authenticate. And it was actually a little harder to find than we thought it would be. But we did find it. And then, when we opened it up, knowing that this is the door that Jack and everybody of that cast and all those wonderful guests that he had, they all used that door. They all peeked through the porthole window to see the magic that was happening beyond. So really, it's just so unique to be able to get artifacts like that. You never know what it's going to be.
You touched on something we haven't spoken about it, but he was the first to put an ensemble cast together, and he was not worried about getting the laughs. If it meant Dennis Day would get the laugh or Don Wilson would get the laugh, he would give them the joke because he knew when the people were talking about it, they would say, "Hey, did you see the Jack Benny show or hear the Jack Benny show?" They would always say it was the Jack Benny show. They knew it was his team of people that were creating all that laughter.
Right. Yeah, no, yeah, what a great ensemble that he put together. And just wonderful threads that he continued throughout the shows with different jokes, and just really revolutionized the Hollywood industry.
And people don't realize how significant his casting of Rochester was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really was. And it's really special to see how he treated Rochester. And during that era when we know that just things weren't the way that, well, I mean, things still aren't good, perfect. We know that, but for Rochester being African American, the struggles that he had to deal with, the differences that he had to deal with from others in Hollywood, and how well Jack and the crew treated him, to the point where they go on the road for different things, and if Rochester is not allowed to stay at a certain hotel, they're not staying there either.
Wow.
So he was an integral part of the team.
Also, he was one of the highest paid black performers of his time.
Right.
Which, again, talks about the generosity of Jack.
Yep. And he sure could get the laughs too.
Yeah, and the best part about it was that he always got the last word. Jack was always one-upped by Rochester.
Right.
Do we know who Jack's inspired Jack? Who were his heroes?
I don't really have a name, but I really attribute a lot to his days in the pit orchestra at the Barrison Theater, where he is just sitting there watching all of these vaudeville performers.
Yeah.
And I mean, he becomes such a dynamic entertainer. I mean, he's not just a comedian. He is entertaining you in so many different ways. I mean, he really, I think, takes a lot of this vaudeville and just absorbs it, and then later just brings it back in various capacities.
I think you said the word that we're always a fan of on this program, and it's entertainer. Too often today, if a student is going into the field of entertainment, they have to declare their major. I am a singer, I am a dancer, I am a comedian, and in their lane they must stay. But in Jack's time and for centuries, it was a matter of learning and collecting these traits, these talents that you can then share to entertain an audience.
Yeah.
We also we've neglected talking about his best friend, George Burns.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything that has George Burns involved in your exhibit?
We don't. Really, within the exhibit, we stick to his Waukegan story, or prominently when he comes back and brings the movie cast and his radio show in town for the world premiere of Man About Town, that movie. But we have featured Benny with smaller highlights, things like that over the years. So Burns and Hope and others have been definitely discussed.
Yeah.
Hey, Pop, we have a question here. I know we're nearing the end of our time here today, but you kind of gave a tease of your presentation when you flipped backwards through your slideshow.
Yeah.
Yeah, are there any you would like to highlight? Can we fast forward to any specific slides or images or clips?
It's not going to be too
Jarring?
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be. If it upsets anybody, just look away for a moment. You can still listen to the soothing tones of our voice.
I want to show, this is Jack with Johnny Carson.
Yes, please.
And they stayed lifelong friends.
You know, Johnny, I meant to ask you one thing during rehearsal. How long have you been in show business?
2 years.
2 years. Gosh, that's amazing. I've been in it practically all my life. Well, you're certainly doing a wonderful job.
Well, thank you, Jack, and I want to tell you that I never miss one of your television shows.
You watch all of them?
Every single one of them.
Well, isn't that nice? Huh?
And Jack, Jack,
Yes?
would you mind if I made a few little suggestions? Well, in the nature of constructive criticism. You don't mind, do you?
No, I think constructive criticism is good for everybody, you know. How long did you say you were in show business?
2 years.
Out with it.
Well, as long as I'm being constructive, Jack, this I have to tell you. Now, you may not realize this, but every move you make, your delivery, every little inflection that you have is exactly the way I work, and I don't think it's fair. See, you're staring again.
Now, listen to me, Mr. Carson.
Call me Johnny.
I'll call you anything. You've got a lot of nerve saying that I'm stealing your style. Everything I've done since I started in show business. 22 years ago. And if I were going to copy anybody, it wouldn't be an unfunny, untalented upstart like you.
Well,
now cut that! Johnny Carson, I came out here at the start of my show, didn't I?
Yeah.
Telling the audience what I thought of you, how wonderful
now,
you are.
Jack, wait a minute. Wait just a second. Remember when you asked me to be on your show?
Yes?
You were the one who told me to do this routine so we could get some laughs.
I suggested that you insult...
When you called me 2 weeks ago, remember?
Oh, my goodness, I did. Oh, Johnny, I'm terribly sorry, really.
We
There's
have
early
here a couple
pictures.
questions pop as you're clicking through. George Burns and Sunshine Boys. Can you talk a little bit what happened there? And
Sure. As a matter of fact, hold on one second. I think I even have.
Well, sir, what can I do for you? I'm trying to get a gift for my boss. Your boss, eh? Well, what would you like? Well, I don't know. Maybe you got a suggestion. Well, what kind of man is your boss? Is he the athletic type? No. Is he the intellectual type? Well, no. The executive type? No. Well, perhaps the outdoor type? No. Well, perhaps he's the playboy type? No. I'm afraid there isn't very much left. That's him.
Okay, let me get. I want to see if I can get to the Sunshine Boys.
but I see here, yeah, a lot of Rochester. And thankfully, just as we planned it, Ellen pointed out we have 39 visitors today. Couldn't be more appropriate.
Okay. Hold on one second.
I saw a question about Fred Allen.
Yes. Is the rivalry genuine, or what's the relationship between Fred and Jack?
They were good friends, but it was a fun rivalry. Fred says, fifth grader, or a young man in the fifth grade, and already plays the violin better than Jack Benny. This was the young man plays Schubert's The Bee, and then this starts the retaliation on Jack's show, and it just continues until Fred Allen's death, but actually continues after that. One aspect of Jack Benny that we really never think of is what his post-retirement. And really, he goes back into music, and he really fulfills the dreams of his parents to become that violin player that becomes known. I mean, people knew he was a violin player, but now he's back playing for different orchestras, and he really dedicates his retirement to helping orchestras raise money, and he helps them raise millions of dollars around the world. And even here in Waukegan, his last time he was here, April 1974, he is here for the inaugural concert of the Waukegan Symphony Orchestra, and he's the guest soloist. And one of the pieces that he plays is Schubert's The Bee.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Allen and I are going to play quite a by Sarasetti.
No, go ahead. Yep.
Sorry, Ty.
No, yeah. So, I mean, the Waukegan Symphony Orchestra is still going today, 50 years later. But it's the legacy that starts with the hometown hero, Jack Benny, coming back to play with that group. So again, it's another way we have remembered him and honoring him. We did celebrate that 50th anniversary last year and recreated a lot of what he did, but without him there, the comedy just wasn't quite the same. But it was still fun to think back to that last appearance in Waukegan in 74 before his passing.
And just to catch up on the Sunshine Boys, he was cast. A lot of people were solicited for this. Red Skelton and oh my gosh, Phil Silvers, quite a few different people. But they ended up with Jack Benny and Walter Matthau. Here is just these are silent outtakes of them in costume so that they can get a good appearance of what they look like together. But look how much fun they're having together. So for those that don't know, Jack was diagnosed with cancer, and he had to drop out. He asked his best friend, George Burns, if he would take over for him, and he did. George ended up winning an Academy Award for his portrayal in The Sunshine Boys, but that was supposed to be the Jack Benny role.
The one Jack's, yeah, it was supposed to be Jack, and George wound up stepping in for it.
Yeah. Okay, so what I wanted to show is something that Ty was talking about. Here he is doing basically a concert. It was on the Hollywood Palace on TV, but this is him the way he would have been doing a concert with a full orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Chappelle and I are going to play Zigeunerweisen by Saracetti as a duet, you see. Now, I'll play the lead, and she will play the counter melody, and this is the first time this has ever been done with this classical number, you see. Give me A, would you please, honey? That's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, Zigeunerweisen.
So you get the idea. All right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's fun. It's really impressive to see how talented and capable he was on the violin.
Absolutely. And as Ty indicated, his final years, he loved doing these concerts.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see here. So can we take over the screen and let's just show everybody how we can keep in touch? Cassandra, if you're there, let's see the website. We'll pull that up as well. Let's see here. We'll pull that.
I'll stop my share.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
And we got Jack looking over our shoulders here.
Yeah. Jack on one side and Mickey Mouse on the other.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So we know that it's not open quite yet for the public, but we're going to be sharing all of these links in our follow-up email so that we can keep an eye out and visit you hopefully sometime in the near future, Ty, at
Ty,
the
do you
Jack
know when
Benny.
you think this is going to be completed?
We really are looking at 6 to 8 weeks at this point.
Oh, very good. Excellent.
Yep.
Oh, we can do that. That's all right. And everyone, you can keep in touch with Sal, Cassandra, myself at celebritymuseums.com for all of our upcoming programs, all of the museums that we're visiting. We do have the Titanic coming up soon and more to follow, along with some very special surprises that I know we keep having to bite our tongue, but we're looking forward to sharing them with you soon.